Over on the house topic, just don't buy a house for the sake of buying a house. Buy a primary residence is not an investment. If you buy a primary residence with the idea that you'll turn that into a rental property, now we're starting to talk a little bit. So, I mean, if you're younger and you're still, maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you're not in a relationship, maybe you're going that direction. I believe in renting as long as humanly possible, just because I live in an apartment now because I sold my house last November. And basically, I mean, I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to do anything. All I got to do is pay my bills and I'm good to go. I mean, once you start buying a house, you got a lawn to take care of, you got insurance, you got a roof, you got all these responsibilities. And if you're not good at fixing things, or if you don't enjoy fixing things, then you are wasting time. And time is not infinite. You only have so much time. So, I mean, do you really want to be spending your time doing these things? However, if you do want to buy real estate, my suggestion would be buy a primary house. You want to make sure you can buy a house with as many rooms as possible, and then live in that house and rent out the rooms while you live there. I didn't live in my house for free, but I was probably living in my house for $500-$600 a month.
Yeah.
With a maid. Hired a maid service. That's another thing. You have roommates, start making money, hire a maid. It's the best investment you'll make, because you start getting a bunch of people in a house, ain't nobody cleaning.
Yeah.
And if you own the house and you're renting it, your maid becomes tax deductible.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
So, see where I'm going? Like, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but listen, you're renting out the house to friends. They're helping you pay down the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes. They're paying the interest to the bank for you too, because, I mean, you're not paying all the interest. And you hire a maid, and that's tax deductible, so you can get a tax-free income generator and have a cool place to live.
Lessons, guys. There's levels to the game, clearly. We all want to be debt-free. We all want to be producing higher net worths. What are some steps to getting there when it comes to taking care of the student loans, to taking care of some of that credit card and consumer expense?
Well, Lee, it starts off with asking yourself the question, how did I get here? And why am I here? You know, did you take out a student loan because you needed to get an education so that you can get the jobs that you want in the future? Did you decide to do a good job of building up your credit, and then the first time a friend asks you to go on an exotic vacation, you don't have the funds, but you're too proud to say no, so you go on that vacation and now you're paying for it. So you got to identify what got you to this point. And once you take accountability for your actions, then it's going to make it a lot easier for the dominoes to fall into place.
Right. Yeah. And that's just a good launching point for understanding kind of like where you are. What did I do to get here?
Yeah, you have to be responsible for your actions. You can't just say like, oh, I'm in debt. Like, I want them to forgive the student debt. Like, I shouldn't have to pay this. It's like, well, no one twisted your arm to take out those student loans so you can buy that $3,000 MacBook Pro. There's repercussions for your actions. Obviously, I have a lot of friends that are doctors, and I think the most debt I've heard of is almost $1 million.
$1 million, wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, especially a doctor comes out of medical school making like $8 an hour. I mean, it's not like they go from making no money to buku money very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's all about having your vision and eliminating fear of the unknown, which fear of the unknown is, you look at your student loan debt, whether it's $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, maybe more. And it's really hard for someone to comprehend, how am I going to pay this off? I've never made this much money. And it's just kind of like short circuits in your brain go off. You're like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Rather than, what's the phrase? How do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know the punchline, Lee?
Is it piece by piece or with like every bite or something like that?
Yeah, piece by piece, one bite at a time. So, I mean, when you have this huge obstacle, whether it's climbing a mountain, whether it's getting a new personal best at the gym, whether it's building a business. I mean, it just comes step by step. I mean, no person that becomes a master at their craft, it doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, there's lots of practice and hours that goes on behind the scenes. And then what you're seeing on stage is basically the finished product of all those hours.
Mm.
Damn, that hurt. Change is on the way. Change is on the way.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. Real estate, you're basically borrowing money to purchase an asset. So you're leveraging your asset. So, I mean, my 10% return is actually greater than 10% because I didn't put in all of the money to buy that asset. A lot of research has actually shown that investors should consider purchasing stock on margin while they're young and leveraging their assets while they're young, because a couple of Yale professors actually found that it's no different than buying a mortgage for your assets. You're just basically borrowing the money today so you can invest more in the market so that you can spread out your risk over time and then leverage yourself as well. It's just these things aren't taught in school. We're taught that those sort of things are too risky. Yet if you know how to use your credit card responsibly, a credit card's not a dangerous thing. Yet if you go over your limits and max out your cards, then it could be very detrimental to your wealth.
So that's interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. I don't hear too much about that. Purchasing stocks on margin. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could do that. And I mean, when I worked for a big faceless organization, what the really really wealthy investors would do is they would have a portfolio of assets. Let's just call them stocks of whatever, we'll call them ABC stocks. And what they would do is they would borrow against those assets at the margin rates, which the margin rates are actually less than the current mortgage rates. And they would use their assets, borrow against their assets to buy more assets, and in return become their own bank. So if they did need to sell some of their assets to cover that margin, they have the assets to cover. But basically the idea is use your assets to buy more assets. And that's how you create a huge compounding effect. And it ultimately, rather than paying interest to a bank, you start to bankroll your own deals and pay less interest to other places, while at the same time gaining appreciation on those assets since you didn't have to get rid of them.
Okay. I love this. Let's talk later about this. This is great. That's kind of not an advanced concept to advance. If you know, you know. Kind of reeling it back just a little bit. Say I'm dealing with like student loan debt, or say I have like a couple credit cards. I have two, maybe like $8,000.
Okay.
And student loan, let's say that's $20,000.
Okay, 28.
And I want to be debt free in 2 years. I have a job where I make about $45,000 per year. Where would I start when it comes to getting rid of this debt? And mind you, I haven't paid a cent on anything until this conversation.
How much is in your 401k?
Oh, we're maxing that out, baby.
Yeah, how much is in there? In this example, is there anything in there? We just starting out fresh?
Oh no, we're putting up to 10%, and they max at 6, or they match at 6.
I mean, there's just so many ways you can go with this. I mean, you could pay the minimums on the debts and get real aggressive with savings, start building up your savings real fast. And what I always like to construct is, rather than paying off the loan as fast as possible, I like to think outside the box and create a loan within a loan. I call it an inception loan. So what you can do is, if you get ahead enough on your payments, you're not accruing any more interest. So if you can get ahead of your interest payments and you can start paying more towards the principal each month, you can manipulate your 5 to 10% student loan and create a 0% student loan. Uh, if you're able to get ahead on your payments, same thing with car payments, same thing with mortgages. If you're able to get ahead before the interest starts compounding and it gets out of hand, then you can ultimately have a bunch of debt, but get those interest rates to closer to 1%, maybe 2%.
Mm.
And that's really not anything to be, sad about. If you're paying 1 or 2%, that's no big deal, because that creates what's called an arbitrage opportunity. So an arbitrage means that you can borrow money at 1 or 2%. You can go invest into a dividend paying stock that's paying 5%. And then you're making 3% on borrowed money that's not yours. So you're basically making free money. So that's the way I like to look at things. For something on a more simple basis, if you're like just starting out, like just start making your payments on time. That's really all it is. Be consistent. It's just same thing with going to the gym. You got to go to the gym. You got to eat healthy. You got to be consistent. You got to go to bed at the same time. Paying off your debt's no different. Just make those monthly payments. Put money away. If you have extra, put a little extra. If you're starting to feel bad about things, like reevaluate. Ask a friend. Ask Lee. He'll tell you. And it's really ultimately knowing who you are, because what I'm going to do and what Lee's going to do is going to be very different. So it's ultimately figuring out what advice fits your persona.
Right. And that's very true. And oh man, the way your mind works with some of this stuff, these are some concepts I never really thought of. I will legitimately like get off the pod after, and I'm going to go like, yo, let me run some numbers. Let me see how this actually works, because that's very cool. So guys, I hope you got, something from just handling debt in a very cool way to do it as well. There's also other things that millennials are facing besides just handling debt. Yeah, you have to understand where you came from. Yeah, you definitely want to understand how you could manipulate it and where you want to go, but also you have to go. And where you're going is retirement. Yeah. We'll all be old millennials at some point, and we all want to know what's a great way to start when it comes to saving and investing, and what are some things you should take a look at. I have a few things, but I want to let you go first.
As far as retirement goes, it's defining what does retirement mean to you. I mean, for me, it's retirement meant when I left corporate America about 4 years ago. I consider that retirement because I have the freedom to do basically what I want to do every single day. I have the choice to go to work. I have the choice to lay in bed and chill if I don't want to work. I feel like that freedom is retirement. So I joke with people that I retired in my 20s. I'm still working every single day. I'm working towards a greater goal. But I mean, my definition of retirement is freedom. So it's all about figuring out what your definition of retirement is. Is it to be an entrepreneur and work for yourself? And honestly, you'll never feel like you're working when you are really passionate about something. Is it you want to just save up $1 million, live off the interest? Maybe that's 50 grand a year. You collect your social security and you travel the world. Like if that's the life you want to live, gardening in the front yard with your grandkids playing around, like that's a cool life too. It's just ultimately defining if you had to spend your time every day and you had to choose how to spend every minute and no one told you what to do, how would you spend that time? Because you can only travel so much. You can only play so much golf. You can only watch Netflix so much before you get bored out of your mind. Because if you retire and you get to the end and you have nothing you're passionate about, I mean, there's no reason to get out of bed every day. I mean, no matter how much money you have in the bank. So you have to focus on your passions and make sure your passions become part of your everyday life as far as what retirement may mean to you.
Right. Hey, and that's such a cool thought and a very deep thought. That is awesome. I have the belief that finance principles are life principles and life principles are finance principles. And if you're good at both, then you're winning, period. Or if you're good at one, you're winning in the other category as well. So that's where you start. If you want to know what retirement looks like, you can't be thinking about retirement. Then you have to be thinking, where do I want to go? What does that actually look like? What do I want to be doing? Do I want to be out here gardening with the kids? Do with my grandkids? Is that is that my life? Do I want to be sailing on a ship into every country on the planet for the next, I don't know, 20 years? Is that what I want? Do I just want to be living on a ship or a yacht or whatever it is? After you figure out exactly what that, or, in your case, Josh, to be working towards this vision and building this thing that honestly, we have no idea. We just know it's great.
Oh yeah.
Is that what
I'm
you
not.
want your life to be? Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about millennial money mistakes and millennial money missions, however you want to phrase it. I mean, essentially, I mean, for me, it's like I just realized that I want to build something that can outlast me and to live my footprint on the world and to educate people on the best ways to grow their wealth. Because I mean, a lot of things are scary, but I mean, once one person broke I think it was Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. A lot of people started breaking the 4-minute mile, but until someone achieves the impossible, they're going to call it impossible. But when one person finally overcomes that obstacle, then anyone can do it because we're all just people. I mean, Richard Branson's just a person. Bill Gates is just a person. Elon Musk is just a person. So if they can do it, I mean, why can't you?
That is so true. By the way, so on our previous pod that is very unrecorded, we discussed Richard Branson. We might discuss some other things this time, but we discussed Richard Branson. I decided to pick up the audiobook.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. So,
have you started it yet?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I started yesterday. So, where I am now, Richard Branson, he's still a boy. However, they're kind of going through his, not behavioral, it was kind of like behavioral issues as a child.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's kind of where we are right now. But yeah, that's just looking at your life and seeing what it could possibly be. What's the purpose of all of it? That's what's going to lead you into a good idea of retirement and what that looks like for you in the future. You could be definitely close to it right now. However, you definitely want to put a dollar amount on that when it comes to your finances. What does it look like monetarily? Like, what are you eating? What are you waking up doing? How do you feel? Because you're spending something. What does that look like over time? So having that idea of what kind of money that may look like, what are you comfortable with? Once you have that amount, you can start working backwards to now. And that's retirement. Well, what are some of your thoughts on methods that people can use to begin preparing for retirement today? Say I'm in that same situation and I got a good plan. Now I am $28,000 later debt free.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, you know what? It's time to start preparing for retirement. I'm ready. What do I do?
We just said you gotta look back, you gotta look forward into the future, figure out what kind of life you want to live, and then work backwards. I mean, are you gonna need 10 million in retirement? You're gonna need 500,000? You're gonna need 50 million? I don't know. As far as looking forward, you may have a good job now, maybe become an entrepreneur, and you don't make any money for 10 years, such as Colonel Sanders living in his car, attempting to sell people his chicken recipes. I mean, a lot of people don't know that Warren Buffett made most of his net worth after the age of 65, just to do the compounding interest. So, I mean, you got to start somewhere. It's good to invest, save money, and then figure out where can you put your money in a place that you feel comfortable with investing, where at the same time, you want to make sure that you're taking enough risks so that you're not going to come up short, but you also don't want to be so conservative that you're going to be living the same life that you're living today. I feel like you always want to be continuing moving forward, growing, and it comes down to taking risks when maybe you feel a little uncomfortable. That's where the biggest growth happens, when you feel uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And it's very true. If you come to or you meet any advisor or someone who has a who will do any kind of planning with you, another way to put it is something will have to change. Something that you're doing will be altered, will be flipped, will be switched, and something will have to change. Many people are uncomfortable with the idea of change, period, and rather emotional when it comes to the idea of change when it comes to money specifically. I was captivated by what you were saying about understanding risk, conservative versus aggressive. Inflation happens at about 3 to 4% every year. So if you're very conservative in your investing or saving, you're actually losing money over time, or you won't be able to meet your retirement goals because if you're accruing money at a too slow of a rate, it won't be enough, or it won't be valued the same. What are some of your thoughts around where money could go to, be appropriate for, the future?
Well, it depends what your situation is. Obviously, if you are not in a high income position, then you pretty much are forced to invest, whether you like it or not. But the flip side on that is, say I make $1 million a year after taxes. I just make $1 million a year like clockwork. That's what I make. I mean, I really don't have to invest that money. Am I losing to inflation? Yes, but as long as I live a lifestyle within those means, I really don't have to risk that money. But that would probably be foolish of me because I'd just be leaving money on the table. So, I mean, when you're young and you're not making a whole lot of money, the only way to make money is to either make more or save more and invest. So you really got to figure out like, hey, I'm making this much, I'm saving this much. What does that look like with a 5% return? What does that look like with 7? What does that look like at 10? And then you got to figure out like, if you can get there with 5% return, great. And you're
Mhm,
risk adverse, go with the low risk. But
mhm.
if you're like, hey, like I need high returns. Obviously nothing's guaranteed, but if you need high returns to get where you want to go, you really don't have a choice. Well, you do have a choice, but the choice is you won't get there.
Hmm.
So at least you're putting yourself in a position to be successful, rather than if you don't invest in all, you'll never hit the target.
Agreed. That's a word and a word. I was looking at that same report. There's a study that was done by the American Institute of CPAs. They were saying that for most millennials, being, economically well and financially stable, what that meant was just paying your bills. Let me tell you, if you're just paying your bills paycheck to paycheck, you will rue. A mentor of mine said the gnarliest thing today. He said you can take a loan out of you could take a loan out on almost anything, but you can't take a loan out on retirement. If you are not making any plans towards it, it'll just happen. And when it happens, it happens. And unfortunately, I've been in several situations where I've seen what that looks like at the tail end of someone's life when they have not made preparations, for retirement. And sometimes I go maybe too strong on that because I've seen what the end game looks like, and it hurts to see. Because I wish I could do more to help people. But when I say a conservative asset, or a more aggressive asset, or when someone's not too risk averse, yeah, 2% looks good, 3% looks good, and when at the end of someone's life, that's not, you know, and they don't have a lot of money invested or a lot of money tucked away for retirement, that's not the best kind of uh message to give. People don't want to hear it, but I mean, it's the truth. Okay, well, retirement. Retirement.
Retirement. There's retirement in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's it. If you wanted to know, this is something that you can start today. You'll be like, why? But you will be incredibly happy once you hit 40, once you hit 50, and definitely in your 60s as well. And if you, of course, you want to speak to someone about it, Josh is here. You can speak to me about it as well. And you'll get to where you want to go. All right. Also, now that we've gotten all of the heavy lifting out of the way, is there anything else? Is there something else that we're missing in terms of millennials that could be? I mean, they did say buying a house is kind of part of that as well. I don't really have a lot of experience in real estate. That's the reason. That's the only reason I can't speak on it yet. Once I'm there, though. But I do want to see if you have any kind of additional I don't know if tips are the right word, but anything else that could be helpful to millennials in terms of money management or anything like that.
Well, if we're on the house topic, just don't buy a house for the sake of buying a house. Buy a primary residence is not an investment. If you buy a primary residence with the idea that you'll turn that into a rental property, now we're starting to talk a little bit. So, I mean, if you're younger and you're still, maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you're not in a relationship, maybe you're going that direction. I believe in renting as long as humanly possible, just because, I live in an apartment now because I sold my house last November. And basically, I mean, I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to do anything. All I got to do is pay my bills and I'm good to go. I mean, once you start buying a house, you got a lawn to take care of, you got insurance, you got a roof, you got all these responsibilities. And if you're not good at fixing things, or if you don't enjoy fixing things, then you are wasting time, and time is not infinite. You only have so much time. So, I mean, do you really want to be spending your time doing these things? However, if you do want to buy real estate, my suggestion would be buy a primary house. You want to make sure you can buy a house with as many rooms as possible, and then live in that house and rent out the rooms while you live there.
Sage advice. That sounds great, to be completely honest.
So that's what I did. So, I mean, I didn't live in my house for free, but I was probably living in my house for $500-$600 a month.
Yeah.
With a maid, hired a maid service. That's another thing. You have roommates, start making money, hire a maid. It's the best investment you'll make, because you start getting a bunch of people in a house, ain't nobody cleaning.
Yeah.
And if you own the house and you're renting it, your maid becomes tax deductible.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
So you see where I'm going? Like, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but listen, you're renting out the house to friends. They're helping you pay down the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes. They're paying the interest to the bank for you too, because I mean, you're not paying all the interest. And you hire a maid, and that's tax deductible, so you can get a tax-free income generator and have a cool place to live.
Lessons, guys. There's levels to the game, clearly. I'm glad we also have to talk more about this at another date as well. This again.
Yeah, we can't. We don't want to do a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast,
right? Just divulge all the secrets, guys. We're moving now. We truly got all the heavy lifting out of the way. We hit all the top 3 things. I want to look from this random question bowl, and here's a random question bowl right here. I've never showed it on camera, but there it is, y'all. I asked you a couple of these last time, but this time I'm going to ask.
Random question bowl.
Yeah. That was definitely a cup. Well, guys, you see how I operate. Okay, so I think I may have asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again since it's here. What's the most inspiring piece of, most inspiring media you've seen?
Media or medium?
Medium of media, just media. It could be art, it could be music, it could be video, book.
The first one that comes to mind is a friend of mine. He's not really a friend of mine. He grew up in Austria, and his name was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Arnold Schwarzenegger had dreams bigger than his family. His family wanted him to become a police officer. And then, as he said in one of his speeches, marry a lady named Heidi and have a bunch of kids in Austria. Well, he had bigger plans. And one of his pieces of advice is to always think big, never think small, which for Arnold Schwarzenegger is very sound advice. So that's the message that he said, because he went into bodybuilding, and he said when he was lifting weights, he didn't feel pain. All he envisioned was himself on the stage holding the trophy. And so people would ask him, how do you train for 5 hours a day with a smile on your face? He's like, because I envisioned myself with a trophy. And then when he wants all these bodybuilding competitions, he wanted to become a movie star, and everyone laughed at him. They said, like, Arnold, like, this isn't going to happen. You, first of all, what type of name is this? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, no one's going to be able to pronounce it. It sounds like I think he said that an agent called it, like, sounds like a Nazi guard. Like, who's going to buy a movie that says Schwarzenegger? And then he was making fun of that terrible German accent that he has. And Arnold said that he started taking accent removal classes. So could you imagine, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 6'2", 250 pounds, just walking around town saying the zinc and the sink in a fine wine on a vine? And because Germans have problems with the W's and V's and C's and Z's, and I don't know German, but I'm just giving you the ad libs or the spark note version of the speech. And basically what he said, that terrible German accent helped him create one of the most iconic lines in Hollywood history. Do you know which line that would be?
Of course, several of them, man. Several. I'll be back.
Yes,
that's it.
Exactly.
My favorite one is "See you at the party, Richard." That's my favorite one. Oh man! So
what movie is that from, Richard?
Total Recall.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love Jingle All the Way when he's like, "Those are my cookies."
Yeah. Oh man, he has the best movies. The entire '90s encapsulated by Arnold Schwarzenegger. The best. What was your favorite one? There's so many good ones.
Probably Terminator 2.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop at Hollywood, Lee, because what did he do next? He became governor of California.
He is a titan and a force to be reckoned with. I enjoy people with that kind of energy.
So you get to one level, like, always be moving forward no matter what. Like, even if it's just a little bit, just never go backwards.
I love it. Great. There was one. Oh yeah, the best thing you've done all year. I'm giving the people what they want. They want to know more about you, Josh. What's the best thing you've done?
2021 or calendar year? We're only 3 months into the year.
We're only 3 months. It's kind of wild. What's the best thing you've done from January to March?
Well, I can't say getting engaged because I did that December 31st, 2020.
What time? Was it a buzzer beater?
It was in the morning. My fiance told me I promised her last year we would get engaged. So I waited to the very last minute. Well, not the last minute, but the last day. Also, she can't say 2020 was a bad year now because we got engaged. This year, the best thing I've done is finish my book. I'm almost done with my book.
Awesome.
So that's the best thing I've done year to date.
Hey guys, be on the
still working on a title.
For...
I've thought about like. Yeah, I'm still thinking of titles. I don't know. Tips for adulting that don't suck. I don't know. I've been playing around with titles, so it'll be my goal is to have it done before the summer, like, printed, done, released, edited, all that fun stuff. It's a process.
Hey man, looking forward to that. Also, guys, you have to understand, we already talked about levels of the game. You have to understand how smart Josh is. He decided to get engaged on December 31st. Who is going to forget that date? No one. No one. You will always remember. Brilliant played. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Feel free to steal it.
Just might. All right. So here's the last question. And here it is. I'm having a little trouble.
Suspense is killing me, Lee.
Now, this one is an interesting question. Who is one person besides yourself that people should check out? One person besides you, Josh, people should be checking out.
I'm gonna go with someone probably most people haven't heard of, and his name is I think it's PhD doctor Barry Nailbuff from Yale University. Barry Nailbuff is his specialty is game theory, and he is also a serial entrepreneur. He helped start a company called Honest Tea. And he also wrote the book called Life Cycle Investing, which is where I got some of these ideas from, such as the borrowing on margin and focusing on time and things like that. So it's good to find other smart people and learn from them, and then to take what they say one level further, because without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. So it's always good. So Barry Nailbuff is my answer.
Okay.
Check him out. He's a G. Honest Tea. He specializes in game theory, negotiating. How do you negotiate deals, things like that. All things that are beneficial to your well-being.
Awesome. That's so cool. Barry Nailbuff, founder of Honest Tea. Guys,
I think co-founder.
You want to check that out. That sounds really, really, really cool. Well, this brings
a lot of people went in my head, but I wanted to give a dark horse, like someone maybe people haven't heard of, someone who's not really on social media, because there's a lot of successful people you don't see on social media.
That's very true. All my favorites are on social media now. They somehow
they're busy working.
Finagle their way. It always surprises me when very successful people or very like renowned people, high thinkers and all kinds of stuff hop on social media, what kind of stuff they do. Like, it blows my mind. I have like several examples. They're like, this is what we're doing on social media. I love it. And then they have like the best kind of books and anyways, but that's such a cool example. Barry Nailbuff, Honest Tea. If you haven't tried Honest Tea, it's actually pretty decent. Their green tea, it's pretty decent. But this brings us to the end of the pod. This was a good time, enlightening. This was informative. I appreciate it, Josh. Thank you so much, man.
Ellie, thank you.
Yeah.
Excited to see where we end up in a year from now.
Oh, most definitely.